I'd hit a wall. A complete, head-on collision with burnout. My energy was gone, my motivation was zero, but my calendar? It was still packed. The deadlines didn't care that I was exhausted. The responsibilities didn't care that I felt cynical and detached from the very work I used to love. I was running on empty, but life was still demanding I drive at full speed. The common advice always felt like a slap in the face. Just take a break. Go on vacation. You need to disconnect. It's great advice, but for most of us, it's just not possible. You can't just drop everything when you have bills to pay, a family to support, or a career that feels like a runaway train. So, what do you do when you're burned out, but life refuses to stop? This is how I learned to get my energy and my sanity back. Not by taking a break, but by using tiny, strategic practices that I could actually weave into my non-stop schedule. The problem. Recognizing burnout. When you can't stop. It started subtly. I'd wake up after a full 8 hours feeling like I hadn't slept at all. I became irritable, snapping at little things that never used to bother me. At work, I felt this growing sense of detachment, like I was just going through the motions. It felt like nothing I did mattered, which is a dangerous place for a motivated person to be. I was experiencing the 3 classic symptoms of burnout: a complete lack of energy, feelings of cynicism and negativity, and a sense that I was failing no matter how hard I tried. The biggest trap, though, was my own mindset. I believed that rest was something you earned, a reward you got after everything was done. But of course, nothing is ever truly done. So I just kept pushing, telling myself I'd rest later, on the weekend, or during the next holiday. But my body doesn't care if it's Monday or Saturday. It just needs consistent rest. Ignoring it was like ignoring the engine light on my car. Eventually, a breakdown was inevitable. To really begin to recover, I had to adopt a simple framework: recognize, reverse, and build resilience. The first step, recognition, was about more than just admitting I was tired. It was about becoming a detective of my own stress. I started a simple practice of daily check-ins, sometimes just a note in my phone. What triggered my stress today? When did I feel most drained? What situations or people consistently left me feeling exhausted? This wasn't about judging myself. It was about gathering data. I had to acknowledge my feelings without layering on guilt or shame for having them. I had to accept that I was burned out, and that it wasn't a personal failure or a sign of weakness. It's a state of physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion caused by prolonged stress. Recognizing and accepting that reality was the first and most critical step toward taking back control. The solution, part 1. Reversing the damage with micro-habits. Once I recognized how deep the problem was, the next phase was to reverse the damage. A 10-day silent retreat wasn't an option. I needed strategies that were so small, so integrated into my day, that my demanding schedule wouldn't even notice them. I needed micro-habits. These were the tiny, almost invisible actions that began to refill my tank, drop by drop. The first thing I tried was the psychological sigh. I learned that this is one of the fastest ways to calm your nervous system. It's simple. You take a deep inhale through your nose, and then, without fully exhaling, you take another short, sharp inhale to completely fill your lungs. Then, you let out a long, slow exhale through your mouth. I would do this before a stressful meeting, after a difficult conversation, or any time I felt that wave of overwhelm rising. It's a 5-second reset button you can press anytime, anywhere. Next, I created a habit I call scheduled stillness. I completely stopped saving rest for the weekend, because that strategy was clearly failing. Instead, I started scheduling 2 10-minute breaks into my workday calendar, just like a meeting. These were non-negotiable. During this time, I had one rule: do nothing productive. I wouldn't scroll my phone or listen to a podcast. Sometimes I'd just sit by the window and watch the clouds. Other times, I'd take a short walk without headphones. Science shows that walking in silence allows your mind to enter its default mode network, a state where it can process emotions and organize thoughts. It felt strange at first, this intentional inactivity, but it was like giving my brain a chance to finally breathe. My third micro-habit was reclaiming my mornings. My phone used to be the first thing I reached for, and by 7 a.m., my brain was already flooded with emails, bad news, and other people's opinions. I made a new rule: no phone for the first 30 minutes of the day. It wasn't a complicated hour-long routine. It was just 30 minutes to simply be. I'd drink a glass of water, stretch, and just exist in the quiet. This tiny change was profound. It was a daily reminder that my attention was my own, and I could choose where to place it. Finally, I started a 5-minute reflective journaling practice every night. It wasn't a Dear Diary situation. It was a quick brain dump to get the day's emotions out of my head, which research shows can help you fall asleep faster. But I would always end with one crucial thing. I'd write down one small moment of joy, or one thing I was grateful for. Some days it was just the taste of my morning coffee. But this tiny act of reframing helped me fight the cynicism that's so characteristic of burnout, and train my brain to look for the good, even on the hardest days. These small shifts started to add up, giving me just enough breathing room to keep going. But they were just the beginning. I'm so curious. What's one tiny habit you've used to fight back against exhaustion? Let me know in the comments below. Your idea might be the one thing someone else really needs to hear today. The solution part 2. Building long-term resilience. Reversing the immediate damage was like bailing water out of a sinking boat. It kept me from going under, but it wasn't a long-term fix. To truly stay afloat, I had to move into the final phase, building resilience. This meant patching the holes in the boat by creating stronger boundaries and fundamentally changing my relationship with work and rest. The first, and by far the hardest resilience tactic, was setting firm boundaries. For high achievers, saying no can feel like a failure, but I learned that it's an essential act of self-preservation. I started by defining my work-life limits and actually communicating them. My workday ended at 6 p.m. At that time, my laptop closed, and notifications were silenced. No more answering emails late at night or quickly finishing one more thing. I had to be honest about my own limitations, both with myself and with others. This was incredibly uncomfortable at first, but every boundary you hold is a piece of your life you reclaim. Second, I had to get serious about physical restoration. I finally accepted that you cannot outthink physical exhaustion. Sleep became my top priority. That meant creating a consistent sleep schedule and sticking to it, even on weekends. I also scheduled short bursts of movement into my day. This wasn't about training for a marathon. It was about incorporating 15 to 30 minutes of rhythmic activity, like a brisk walk, a yoga session from YouTube, or just dancing in my living room. This type of exercise is proven to reduce stress and improve your mood for hours afterward. I treated these activities like the most important appointments of my day, because they were. The final and most transformative resilience tactic was practicing self-compassion. For years, I had tied my self-worth to my productivity. If I had a productive day, I felt good about myself. If I had an unproductive day, I felt like a failure. Burnout forced me to dismantle this toxic belief. I started to practice what many therapists recommend, asking myself, what would I say to a friend who was in my situation? The answer was never, "You're lazy, push harder." It was always, "You're doing your best, and it's okay to rest." Granting myself that same kindness was a game changer. I had to accept that I am human, not a machine, and that rest isn't a weakness. It's a requirement for a healthy life. I'd hit a wall, but instead of trying to crash through it, I learned how to slowly and carefully dismantle it, brick by tiny brick. The journey out of burnout when life doesn't stop isn't about one grand gesture. It's not about waiting for that magical moment when you'll finally have time to slow down, because that moment may never come. It's about the quiet, cumulative power of tiny, strategic acts of self-care and self-respect. It's about learning to walk in silence, scheduling 5 minutes to just breathe, and giving yourself permission to rest. Before, you are forced to. Recovery is possible, even in the middle of a demanding life. You don't need to pause everything to start getting better. You just need to start. If this story resonated with you, and you're interested in more conversations about building a more sustainable and fulfilling life, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing this time with me.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, I made something for you. Grab my free Calm in the Chaos guide, link in bio.